Hey folks, Sean Noble from Light Beer Dark Money. I wanted to just remind you about one of our sponsors, Americans for Prosperity Arizona. I want to give you a little bit of background on Americans for Prosperity, why they are such an important organization. They achieve policy reforms at the local level through a process which they've developed, which is pretty basic if you hear it. They provide policy solutions based on proven principles. They organize communities to bring people together. They educate, train, and mobilize concerned citizens to take action. They advocate for the policy reforms, and then they hold the public officials accountable for those policy reforms. It's a very simple process. Go to americansforprosperity.org, learn more about them, and thank them for supporting our show, Light Beer Dark Money. Thanks. Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I am Chris Clements.
And live from D.C.,
Live.
we've got Congressman Ciscomani.
Senor Juan,
Hola, amigos.
as I like to call him.
It is great to see you. It's great to have you on the show. And most especially, it's great to have you back in Congress. We're glad you won.
It
Thank
is.
you.
It is
Glad
so
you won.
great. We've been, Juan and I've known Juan now for, over a decade. And we have been talking about this, since he's been in Congress, to get him on our show. And here he is.
Yeah,
it's
there he is.
unbelievable.
Yeah, that's great.
We initially actually asked his wife, Laura, to be on because she's
that's
much
usually
more
what happens.
she's a little bit
She
more
declines.
photogenic and she really
Yeah.
runs the show. We all know that, right?
She's the
She
smart one.
declines and you get the team, the B team, and that's what I fit.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Congressman, talk to us about your race. It was, a top targeted race in the country.
Ugh.
There were a lot of people who wrote you off. Explain
Yeah.
to us why you were successful.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, really happy to be able to be on finally, Chris. I think once Sean invited me, I was like, okay, it's time to go on.
Oh, he's waiting for
So,
me.
Yeah, it just
That's
happened that
that's
way.
usually what happens. I beg and plead, and then Sean just says, "Hey, you should come on." And it's like the Jedi mind
That's a
trick.
great idea. We should have thought about that before. Great, Sean. Thanks for bringing it up. But yeah, listen, we knew it was going to be a tough race every time, right? We were looking at a district that is 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat, and 1/3 Independent. We know that. And the first time around, we won it by 5,232 votes. And it was just 1.4%. So from the get-go, I mean, I had been in office for 3 weeks when the first ad ran against me from the DCCC. They were investing in this race since the get-go. Ended up investing over 10 million in this race after the full cycle. So they were relentless. Letters to the editor, I mean, all organized, right? My opponent is able to raise a boatload of money, especially this year when Ag Blue started pouring in the money. So the campaign was aggressive, but they went kind of personal. They're actually very personal and very racial, actually, at some point. So, I mean, the articles that were running, questioning my immigration journey and my faith. So when they did all that, just the district doesn't respond well to it. And we were running on a strong record. We had done the things that we said we were going to do. It's an appropriator. The district saw the value of us being there. That's a Jim Colby legacy of that as well. Right. And we delivered on border bills, and we were present everywhere. I got to tell you, just the fact that we went everywhere, and whenever I was in the district, I was out and about and stayed in touch, talked to mayors, Democrats, Republicans, didn't matter. Independents, actually, the mayor in Sierra Vista is an independent. He was elected as a Democrat, and the party ran him out. And he ended up re-registering as an independent early in his term. So worked with everyone. I actually held a mayor's meeting. I hold an annual mayor's meeting where I meet with all of them and their city managers to see how we can work together. What are the resources that we can bring home? So just all these different elements, an advisory council with Republicans, Democrats, and independents, everything is that we just went out there, listened, and we worked hard and delivered, and we were present. And that earned us the victory again, in spite of being outspent as much as we were.
Well,
and I think that
the Secretary of State right now has you leading by 10,822 votes.
Yeah, it's all.
That's right.
It's really
that's
tremendous.
Double from last time.
Yeah,
Raw
really
vote-wise.
tremendous.
Double from last time.
But
yeah,
I think what really is the most impressive is and this is so many members of Congress get in and then they forget that you actually need to be present.
Really?
I mean, it's just amazing. And so, Juan, Congressman, you've done it exactly right from the standpoint of being everywhere. And, my guess is they probably, they may run somebody tough against you again, but it's not going to be a top tier.
No. I
think, you've done this twice now. You've won this district. Same with Schweikert. I think he's probably off the targeted list. I mean, not off, but
yeah, we were top three. We were top three on the race. And one of the things, Sean, that you mentioned that people forget to be present. I sleep in my office right here. I mean, I'm sitting at my desk right across right there. I move the furniture, pump up the good old air mattress. I'm in my second one. The first one already died. It already popped. Those aren't meant to be used every night, guys.
Right.
Those are meant to go camping on,
Exactly.
and that's about it. But I overuse hours. But I'll never forget. Laura said, "Nah, let's do the office thing. I want you to be so uncomfortable there that you got to fly back on the first flight back."
That's right.
And well, mission accomplished. But that's true. I mean, I take the red eyes in. And I fly home on the first flight that we can on flyout day, like today in a few hours, and I make it home. I mean, this weekend I'm coaching in our flag football tournament. We ended up the season 8-0, and now we're walking to the playoffs. So it's not just doing work and constituent work, but I'm dropping kids off at school. I'm coaching flag football still. We're going grocery shopping. All the things that I get to interact with people outside a work environment or a political environment, just families dropping off their kids. And I'll tell you this, those moms in the drop-off lane don't care what your title is. If you're holding up the line, they're gonna honk at you. Yeah, they're gonna let you know that you're holding it up. So it's a great way to just stay connected with my district and the people that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Well, it keeps you humble, that's for sure. And that district, it's an unwieldy district. It's a very humbling place, and Tucson itself is very communal, and people there, whether you're Republican or Democrat, everybody needs to work together for the betterment of the community, and you've epitomized that, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man.
And you mentioned the guy who did it the best, and that was Jim Colby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jim worked his butt off for that community, and once he was elected in 1984, and I remember that election clearly, that was it. He had that seat for as long as he wanted because of the way he was in the community, and then people didn't care that he was a Republican.
It's crazy. One of the things that I've learned in this job is that 2 years is an eternity. You can leave office 2 years ago, and the whole incoming freshman class, they don't know who you are. So once you go through maybe 4-6 years of being out, all that gets pretty much erased, and this place is a short memory. But I'll tell you this, I'm in some of the committees for appropriations, specifically the Labor, Health, and Human Services Committee, and also the State and Foreign Operations, both committees that Jim Colby was on. They still talk about him. Yeah. They still remember him. They still respect him. And this place, I'm telling you, has a short memory. The funny thing they say is like, when you retire or you step away, you go from who's who to who's that.
Right.
Yeah. You go from being the person to your name on the door to having to give everything up when you pass security and they don't remember who you are. But for the Colby legacy to be alive in this place still, since he retired in 2006, are you kidding me? That's 18 years ago, and Jim's way of carrying himself, and more than the exact policies that he passed, which were significant as well. It was what he demonstrated, the kind of statesman that he was.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been working on this bill to rename a post office in his hometown in Patagonia after him. So we're hopefully seeing that through.
That's awesome.
Oh, that'd be great.
But
maybe someday you'll be hanging out with Bono, just like Jim.
You would like that for sure.
Working on European debt reform and aid to Africa.
Anything's possible.
That's right.
It was amazing.
Looking into, so it's just breaking today that this is only relevant to you because he was a colleague and now he's out of the House. But Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his nomination.
Imagine
as
that.
AG.
We were just talking about it yesterday.
Yeah, we were just talking about it yesterday.
Now it's what we said yesterday is completely outdated.
Yeah, well,
I'm so glad that we're doing this.
It happens. So Obviously the majority is very, very thin because his seat needs to be filled. You've got Waltz from Florida. His seat needs to be filled because he's going to be NSA director. And then there's one other. Oh, Elise Stefanik is
up
going
in
to UN.
in northern New York.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so it's going to be very, very tight. And regardless, I mean, even when you have those 3 seats back, it's still going to be a very, very small majority. How do you look at this coming year with the Trump administration, Republicans in the Senate, thankfully? What's it going to look like starting up in the new term coming up in January?
Well, very different than last year for sure. In terms of the majority in the House, you guys saw this, but we were the 218th win.
Yeah.
And that was very special. We timed it well,
That's right.
the back and forth voting. I was like, yeah, let's hold off a little bit just so that we can
You
be
told
the
Cochise
218th.
County, let the machine stay broken.
Yeah. No, it was definitely all orchestrated.
You were competing with David on that, I think.
Yeah, David got called first. Listen, I wish my race would have been called on Tuesday, so I was not aiming for that at all. But proud to have been the majority maker, and that now it's funny they're Mr. 218 or that all that is good, but it is going to be tight. It is going to be tight. It's going to be maybe a 3 to 5 seat majority, depending on what happens in the final counts here in California, where they're still counting, guys. I mean, they have weird rules there that. As long as it's postmarked by election day, I mean it's really shady. But that they do it their way there, and we've got some colleagues that are on the brink, Duarte and Michelle Steele specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So those two, keep your eye on them on what they've been losing their lead, and now Michelle's a little bit under.
Right.
So anyway, it's going to be tight, but it's there's a different environment that I feel here from the first time. Now, this time 2 years ago, I was still in orientation, trying to figure out where the restrooms were, where my office was going to be, all that stuff. So we're in a much better place now in terms of being able to project and work on the goals for next year. But I'm already seeing a lot more alignment. And I think everyone saw, both sides, including the people that were responsible for disrupting a lot of the order here. I don't think anybody wants another 2 years like the ones we had last cycle. They weren't productive, and as much as we didn't have the Senate and the White House, we could have been more productive. We could have done more. We could have advanced the agenda more and worked better together. But just frankly, it didn't happen. So now that we have a responsibility to govern in all 3, there's nowhere to point the finger. I keep telling people, yeah, it's great to have all 3. They're trifecta. It's awesome, and we're gonna, it's a big opportunity, but it's also a big responsibility. We've got to deliver. We've got to deliver. Yeah. There's no excuse, nobody to point the finger at anymore. So that way, I think it's really weighing in on people, and they understand where we're facing. So the Trump team is going to have a very aggressive agenda in the first 100 days. And we have to be aligned on that. Some of that will be legislative action, but a lot of it was going to be executive orders coming in from the White House, specifically around the border, which that's what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, give us your prediction about some of those and how effective those are going to be right out of the gate, and the resistance that we're going to see in Southern Arizona with some of that, specifically how it has to do with criminals who have infiltrated our republic.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at, even in, I think it was New York, that one of the assistant DAs that got mugged by a Venezuelan gang member that was living in one of the hotels that the government or the taxpayers are paying for, and the DA's office there has been protecting, and this guy ended up mugging one of the assistant DAs. So we're gonna, unfortunately, we're seeing that more and more. We just got done with in the more in the news again, the Laken Riley case, and more details on what happened there. That was extremely tragic. We have those stories, and they've gotten some attention, but there are many other stories as well that we haven't been hearing about, and that's going to be one of the drivers. Listen, people that are here that are on temporary status through asylum or waiting a court date, and they're committing crimes, and they've been convicted of those crimes. there's no room for those people here in the country, and they're going to have to. President Trump has talked about deportations, and that's where the priority is going to be on the people that are here in the country that shouldn't be in the country in the first place, but they're here committing crimes. That's a double whammy. So that's more of what the focus is going to be. At the same time, we have to stop the flow of people obviously coming in, and that's not complicated. It just means that Border Patrol can do their job. And now instead of catch and release or catch and transporting in other parts of the country, they're going to be able to do their job and determine in a sensible time period of that week that was taken before to determine if someone has a legitimate claim for asylum or not. So there's a lot of fear, I think, and misconception of what this will look like. We'll get more details soon. But everything that I've seen and heard from the administration, it's going to be focused around the people that already have a deportation order or they've been convicted through the court already for a crime and they're still in the country because Biden wouldn't go into any kind of deportations. Those are the people that the Trump administration is going to be targeting first.
Yeah.
One of the most completely disgusting things that has happened over the last 4 years with this administration and the immigration question specifically. And there was a hearing on Capitol Hill the other day on this, and that's the child trafficking that is out of control. Yeah. How do we find those kids?
Man, that's
there are hundreds of thousands of kids who supposedly are with family members, but they don't know where they are, or with mentors and they don't know where they are, and they're being trafficked as we speak.
Yeah, that's a tragedy in every sense of the word. A couple of years ago, the New York Times broke the story, and at that time there were 85,000. And you say 100,000 now or over 100,000, 85,000 a couple of years ago. But you got to remember when it came out, this is about 10 years ago, that they were about 500 to 600 unaccompanied kids that they were untraceable in the country. That made national news. We're talking, we go from 600, which is an unacceptable number, to 85,000. That's almost like an incomprehensible number. You just can't wrap your head around that. How is this administration able to lose track of 85,000 minors? And you saw many of the images of these one-year-old kids being dropped off with a phone number on their foot and hoping that they would call it, and they would just like literally dump the kid on our side of the border. These cartels don't care, and the problem is that you got the cartels now managing and orchestrating all the traffic coming in with people, drugs, whatever's coming in. They know about it even more than our own government likes to admit that they know. So that's a big problem, Chris. And now that number has even gone much higher. And I've questioned the secretary of the different secretaries of the agencies on this to see where they are. And they don't have answers for us. And they point the finger and, we vet them well and then we turn them over, and they've lost them. And then according to the New York Times story, many of them are being found in different labor camps or sex trafficking rings. I mean, it's terrible. So we have to do a clean effort, a real effort of cleaning up those lists and try to find the ones that we can.
It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely unbelievable. And that hearing the other day was just, well, I think what was good about that is that it's not a partisan issue. This has to be fixed. Yeah. And I think you saw that in the members' comments, but you're also seeing the administration running away from their responsibility. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, and Secretary Mayorkas refused to testify in front of the Senate today. Refused.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's what I mean. The accountability is not there for the people that have caused this. I feel like, I don't know if people have become immune to this, or they just feel like it's just a number on the sheet of paper of saying 85,000 or 120,000 kids, minors. They just, as a dad, I'm a dad of 6. I know you guys are parents as well, and it breaks my heart to think of those kids and see they're the ages of my own kids, and I can't imagine what they've gone through. And yes, it's been Mayorkas, it's been Ray with the FBI, but it's also been Becerra with Health and Human Services. I've I've had the opportunity to question Becerra on this. Mayorkas hasn't been in front of my committee yet, but it's they you're right, they pass on the buck and they don't take responsibility for it.
Well, I mean, and we move on to another subject, but then you have these mayors across the country, these blue city mayors who are saying they're going to defy, and governors as well, saying they're going to defy, ICE and Tom Homan if he comes in, to deport criminals and what have you. It's a losing issue for them. I don't understand what message they didn't receive from this last election.
Right.
You lost on this issue. This was the number one issue, and you lost. And now you're going to defy federal law when ICE comes in and is arresting criminals or sex traffickers. That's what you're saying to the American people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you look at Arizona. Katie Hobbs made a comment, right, of just like, oh, we got to work together with with the Trump administration, and then
yeah, we're not quite there yet, Juan. We're working on it. We got some time.
I'm still stuck on Governor Ducey, but Governor Hobbs said that comment, and the left blew up at her, and then now she's trying to backtrack it, and then you've got Mays, that same thing, won't enforce it. So honestly, Democrats here have to make a choice, and they have to look at it how the electorate reacted and what the American people want and what the real need is. This is no room for politics. Some of the members here that are Democrats that won in districts that are more Republican leaning are leaning on some kind of message on saying, hey, Democrats, you need to wake up. And this is an issue that we have to take serious. This is an issue that we've been messaging on and actually acting on well on the Republican side. And I don't know if they're going to get it or not. But I'm telling you this, a lot of these people got voted out because of that. And we got voted in because of that as well. So we have to deliver on this. There's no option.
Yeah, that's such a great point because, I mean, the Democrats have a reckoning in which they have to decide whether they're going to respond to the electoral wishes of the American people, or are they going to defy what the American people wanted and find themselves in the wilderness for the next
It was really
few
one of the
cycles.
most inexplicable things that this administration did, and that was to nationalize the immigration issue. Because for years it was a Texas problem, a New Mexico problem, Arizona problem, and they purposely shipped people all over the country. It wasn't just Republican governors; it was the administration.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people are waking up in Ohio and thinking, wait.
What's going on?
What is going on here?
They're eating
Where
the
are all these
cats and
people?
the dogs.
Regardless of the
Yeah.
truthfulness of that or not, you wake up and you're a community of 4,000, and all of a sudden 10,000 Haitians show up, and you're like, "What? What's happening?"
Yeah.
And now they're self-deporting. It's being reported. So it's unbelievable to me that they actually believe that this would win them, the election.
Yeah. Well, and what it was is it wasn't. They weren't thinking about the election because they didn't think it would matter. They were appeasing their hard left base.
Of course.
And they thought that that they were going to be able to beat bad orange man no matter what crappy policies they kowtowed to the left. And Congressman, you had some vicious attacks against you. You talked about the personal attacks, but also what I found fascinating is that your race is a great example, in part because here in Arizona we had the abortion constitutional amendment on the ballot, which I think took a lot of the sting out of the abortion issue. But I mean, was there any other issue that they spent more money against you on than the abortion issue?
That's probably that was their biggest investment, and on the personal attacks too. Again, I'm surprised of the strategy, and that may work in Chicago politics or in other places, but in Southern Arizona, it doesn't work. When I had so many people, even now, tell me, when I saw those ads, and I thought, God, I went to middle school with this guy. I don't remember that from him, or I went to college with him, or the Wendy's that I worked on as my first job is in the smack middle of the district. So I ended up meeting the guy that owned that Wendy's then. He owned all the Wendy's in Tucson. And I said, hey, I worked for you back in 2000, 2001, 2, and 3. So, you have these relationships that people realize how much they're lying about you, and that speaks for itself. But they did invest a lot of money on that. And one of the ads that I launched was actually part of her ad playing, and then me turning to the camera and saying, she's lying about this and she knows it. And then we played clips of all the times that I had said the opposite of what she was saying,
Right.
that the paper reported on it, or that I said it on TV or in a debate. And it just kind of like set the record straight on that. I didn't have to bash her. I didn't have to call her names or attack her personally or her faith. All the things they did against me. Listen, when I'm running this campaign, we want to win. We want to make sure we're competitive. But I also have to remember that I've got 6 little people watching every move that I make.
Yep.
And if I want to raise them in the way that they have to be good people and be good to other people and not lie and smear and do all that, I have to run a campaign that is reflective of that. And if I'm ever embarrassed of my kids watching one of my commercials, then I've missed it. So those were kind of like guardrails that I used all along as well. And there's no issue and problem with setting the record straight, calling her out for her lies or your opponent. And that's what we did, but in a way that was truthful, that was honest, straightforward, and not deceiving. And that's not what they did against us. That's for sure. They played really dirty games. And but they came up short because that's people don't appreciate that. And again, we fought hard and we raised a good amount of money as well, and we competed. And we were there. We showed up, and we had results and a record to run on. But when you look at those attacks, that was probably that was their golden ticket, they thought. But voters were worried about other things as well, and that's an important one. Don't get me wrong. That's what we spend resources clearing up the record. However, people also cared about the border, and they also cared about what they could afford. And some of these people, you talk about how can they be so disconnected? You know why? Because they have these superstars and these celebrities talking to people why they should vote for who they should vote for. Right. But those people aren't looking at the prices at the grocery store. They're not worried about whether kids are going to go to college. They're not worried about choosing between one sport or another kid's sport in your household. They don't worry about that kind of stuff. They don't think through all that. So they just say, oh, vote for this person. I think they're going to throw a concert. They got paid for, by the way.
Right.
And then they convince people to vote for them. That's not where the country is. And they keep missing it. But listen, we can't depend on them. And thankfully, they're not in power. I think we have our head well placed on our shoulders to be able to do this. And glad that we are in the position of power to do something about it.
Well, you really do have it. And I will say this just unabashedly: there is a mandate. I mean, the fact that the Republicans, Trump won the popular vote, resounding victory in the Electoral College. Senate picked up significant, seats. We're at 53. The House stayed Republican, and in part because redistricting, there's not going to be big swings like there has been in the past.
You're right.
But there is a mandate, and people say, well, only 36,000 votes made a difference. Blah blah blah. I mean, when Bill Clinton got elected in 1992 with a plurality because of Ross Perot.
Well, he didn't even go over to 50%.
No, he was at 44, 46%.
Yeah.
Time Magazine, the mandate.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Trump's got a mandate, and the Republicans in the House have a mandate, and the Republicans in the Senate.
Well, you remember when Obama was elected?
Oh.
That we're all socialists now?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Right. Well, when Obama got elected, everyone assumed that the Republican Party was dead for a generation.
For a generation.
Now, there are definitely some commonalities with the feeling that the Democrats could be in the wilderness for a long time following this election. And it just depends on how they handle this. But I think that what your point is, Congressman, and I think that this is the important point, we have to deliver. As Republicans, we have to say, okay, this is what we campaigned on, and we've got to actually do this now.
We got it. And we have, see, this is the way I see it. We have an opportunity here that we can squander, an opportunity to do what's right, to do what the American people have said they want us to do. And we can't fumble it. We can't fumble this one. And I don't think we will. I'm saying that just as a reality check, but I don't think we will. Again, because I've been here for 2 weeks now after the election. And I see a lot of more seriousness that I saw last time. Last time I was picking up already an appetite to have internal fights. I don't see that here. We are going to have differences in discussion, especially as we approach the end of the year budget and what happens there. But we're in a different place. And to go back real quick on the community that voted, I mean, we can't overlook the power of the Hispanic community voting
Yep.
Republican this time. And it's two things that I want to highlight on that. Obviously, the Democrats have taken the Hispanic community for granted for far too long, and the Republicans hadn't really paid attention, taking it almost as a lost cause of not being able to vote for Republicans or register Republican. So that just proved false this time. Hispanics voted for President Trump. They voted for us, as the polling shows. They voted for conservatives and Republicans, and that was the sleeping giant that had been that was awakened this time to prove the importance of it. Now, at the same time, I don't know we haven't seen the numbers, how many Hispanic actually re-registered as Republicans. We know they voted Republican, but we don't know if they actually are all in with the GOP. I think they're leaving the Democrat Party in drones and becoming independents. So this is an opportunity that the GOP has to solidify the Republican vote for Republicans, like Reagan did in the 80s. We have that opportunity right now, and I think President Trump can help deliver on that.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, the Trump factor when it comes to specifically Hispanic males and that huge swing was something that the Democrats, I think, just were in denial about for for the entire year. You saw it earlier in the year, the way they were swinging from Biden to Trump, and certainly probably played a huge part in your election.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they like I said, we started seeing the polling on this and how those voters were breaking towards the Trump and us, and we thought, here we go, it's going to happen. The sleeping giant has awakened, and that we've been waiting for that, and this was that election where it happened.
Yeah.
Well, and the Republican Party, both on economic issues where you have more Hispanics opening businesses and truly some of the largest small business owners, especially in Pima County and Cochise County, and how taxes and regulations really affect their ability to run their businesses, and they're seeing that firsthand. And then you have social issues where, typically Hispanics are much more aligned with the values of the Republican Party. And so, this idea that you can import all these Hispanics from Venezuela or whatever, and it's just going to change. That has backfired as well. People who have been here for generations are looking at the immigration problem, as something that
Well, for sure, because you've got a community here that went through the process, right? A community that went through. In my case, it's a 13-year process that my family went through to become citizens. I became a citizen in 2006. 16 years later, I get elected to Congress. Only this nation would ever give you that opportunity. So we're grateful for that. We also know the sacrifices that it took to be able to get there. So absolutely. And if you ever talk to my parents and you ask them, hey, why'd you make the move? It'll probably be like three basic things: better education, better jobs, and safe streets where I can raise my family.
Right.
But then you think about it and you're like, wait, every American wants that.
Yeah.
That's what everybody's priorities are.
Exactly.
All these other things can come and go, but at the end of the day, you just want your kids to have a good education. You want to be able to have an opportunity for a good job, and you want to be able to have a safe community where you can raise your family. So when people ask me, what are the Hispanic issues? I tell them the same issues that you and I have and that everybody has. This is just who we are. So I'm obviously Hispanic, an immigrant. I'm proud of that. And I can tell you that our community is just hungry for to be left alone by the government and to be able to, go out there and prosper and pursue your American dream, whatever it may be. In my dad's case, he drove a bus for most of his life here, and he was able to provide for us so we can go on to college and be where we wanted to be. And in his mind, driving a bus and being a bus driver for Suntran in Tucson was his American dream. Yeah. And that's great. Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. There's no price tag on it. There's no title that matters more. It's just, are you doing what you feel you need to be doing? So that's what I love about the American dream. It really is an individual, decision on that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Congressman, for taking the time. We really appreciate
after all this time, and then we finally got you right after the election.
We'll be watching
again, man. I feel like we had a great conversation, and we just got started. So
we'll do it again for sure. We'll have plenty to talk about as things unfold over the next few months with the budget, and
Yeah.
with reconciliation, and with the border, and all kinds of different things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll be
Just
watching
make sure
closely.
that the invite comes from Sean, and we can make it happen. Okay.
Of course.
We'll learn our,
Why
we've
not?
learned our lesson. All right. Well, thank you so
All right,
much.
guys.
Hey,
All right.
God bless you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks,
See you.
everybody.
Bye.
Take care.